Hello and welcome to Cryptid by State, Idaho. Today we are continuing our countrywide search for each state's hidden cryptids. With this, we had quite a back and forth battle, with Hawaii rising from the bottom of the list and putting up a strong fight for the first position. After the dust settled, Idaho managed to come out on top by only 2 votes. I know my friend Daniel Bishop the Storyteller is happy with this development, since he has been requesting this state since the series started. So join me once again on our Cryptid Family Road Trip as we venture from our previous location of New Mexico and travel 17 hours slightly northwest to Idaho. Idaho has a fairly short but interesting history. Even though this state is considered one of the last areas explored by Europeans, it is interesting to note that remains discovered in 1959 at Wilson Butte Cave are considered the oldest in North America. Before explorers ventured to the area of Idaho, it was home to 9 different Native American tribes, with the Shoshone, Bannock, Nez Perce, Coeur d'Alene, Kalispel, and Salish being the most prominent. It is documented that in 1777, the Spanish were the first to explore this land. Following this, a Scottish explorer named Sir Alexander Mackenzie traveled across North America, including Idaho, in 1793. It would be 12 years later when Lewis and Clark would make their famed journey, in which they worked with the Shoshone tribe to traverse the area via the Snake and Clearwater rivers. The first known trading post, called Kalispel House, was established by a man named Finian MacDonald, under the direction of the Canadian-owned fur-trading Northwest Company in 1809. Many other such companies and explorers followed after this. Spain claimed ownership of what was called Oregon County, which included Idaho, until 1819, when it gave the lands up to the U.S. with the signing of the Adams-Onei Treaty. This did not set well, since Great Britain claimed ownership of the land also, and this wouldn't be resolved until 1846 with the signing of the Oregon Treaty. On August 14, 1848, the U.S. established the Oregon Territory, which included many present states, including Idaho. In 1853, during the Monticello Convention, the Oregon Territory was split in half, with the other portion being called the Washington Territory. This remained until February 14, 1859, when Oregon became a state and the rest of the lands were transferred to the Washington Territory. It wouldn't be until March 4, 1863, when President Abraham Lincoln would make Idaho its own territory. Then, on July 3, 1890, Idaho became the 43rd state to enter the Union. Idaho's flag is filled with all types of symbolisms, and it is simply the state seal placed on a blue background. The state seal shown was created by an artist from Boise named Emma Edwards Green on March 14, 1891. Emma is known as the only woman to ever create a state seal. In the border of the seal, it states exactly what it is, but it also includes a single star, which represents the new light joining the galaxy of other stars, i.e. states. Inside this, we find a white scroll with the state's motto, which is Esto Perpetua, which means let it be perpetual, or that the state will always have a future. To the right of this is a man dressed as a miner, standing by a mound of rocks, symbolizing the state's main occupation at the time. To the left we have the goddess of justice, symbolizing, obviously, justice, but also equality, and to a degree, women's suffrage. To the right of her is the state flower, called wild syringa, or mock orange. Between them are 2 cornucopias and a sheaf of wheat. They are known as horns of plenty, and represent the lush horticulture found here, and the wheat symbolizes the same, but for agriculture. In the center we find a shield that is supported by the miner and justice, and it means that united, they give the state protection. Inside this symbol we see many representations of natural resources. The fir or pine tree is for timber, the horse pulling a plow is for agriculture, the stamp mill represents mining, and the river is there as a symbol for the Snake or Shoshone River. Above the shield is an elk head symbolizing Idaho's game laws protecting moose and elk. Below all these symbols is the words State of Idaho, for obvious reasons. Okay, let's look at the cryptids. When I first thought about making this video, I assumed that cryptids would be fairly scarce, since much like our video on Italy, you don't hear many such tales coming from there. Imagine my shock when I found out that this state has quite a few. And no, they aren't all Bigfoot related. Starting off our journey, I think we'll investigate two creatures that by all accounts should be extinct. The first of which is a weird story from well over 100 years ago. On December 7th of 1909, it was reported that two hunters from Mendota discovered a creature that was a little more than they could handle. Joseph Cliff and Walter Gifford were on a hunting trip in the northern basin. As they followed the trail to Grizzly Gulch, they heard a loud bellowing sound emanating from the valley. Gathering up some courage, they peered down into the tree line, but were met with a fantastic sight. They saw a massive lizard-like head adorned with two long horns emerge from the brush, and its eyes were said to be deep set in the skull. Fearing for their life, they climbed up North Mountain. Feeling secure in their new position, they finally looked back to see where the creature currently was. There it was, walking along the gulch, moving its head around as if it was searching for them. They claimed the body was massive and resembled a dinosaur, but they did say it appeared to be slimy. It was covered in scales and it had large bony spikes running down the spine. It had short front legs that resembled a horse's, and its hind legs were as round as a pine tree, but looked like those of an ostrich. The tail was thick, very long, and said to be akin to a kangaroo's. The unknown beast was so large that it almost took up the entire valley of which it was walking. Gaining a little bit of nerve, Joseph raised his gun, aimed for the head, and pulled the trigger. He managed to hit his mark, but it is said that the distance was so far that much of the bullet's speed had waned off. The projectile only had enough force to just bounce off the creature's head. Even as such, this mere action was enough to cause the creature to begin to thrash about. In its anger, it caused rocks to go flying from being hit with its tail, and it even tore up two trees by using its sharp teeth. In a moment of questionable judgment, Joseph raised his gun again, but before he could fire, the monster bounded up the hill towards the men. Both men started to run as fast as they could, all the while with the unknown animal in pursuit behind them. Fortunately for them, when they reached the forest around Trout Creek, the trees became so dense that it greatly slowed their assailant down. The men continued running until they reached the safety of a nearby town. When the locals heard the tale, they searched the area, but couldn't find any such beast. Now obviously this story could be, and probably is, one of those tales told when news was slow. Although it may have happened, but at the very least, it is an interesting story. The other creature in this category doesn't have a lot of information about it, other than it was seen in 2005 around Boise. It was around this date that a video emerged where an unknown person was walking along a path when what appeared to be a pteranodon is seen flying overhead. Now, understand that this clip has caused a lot of conflicting opinions, and I myself am a little torn about it. The flapping of the wings does seem odd, and the weird dive is a little off-putting, although in that moment the head does appear to turn upward, as in it being a living creature rather than a drone or something of the like. Not to mention after it enters the trees you can still catch glimpses of it, which normally isn't a detail you find in a hoax video. After looking into it, I haven't seen where it has been debunked, other than the excuse of it not being real, being based only on the premise that the species is extinct. There are claims that the video has been examined and doesn't show signs of being edited. Again, I am not saying it is real, and I normally don't include video clips in this series, but it is interesting. Moving from that topic, we head to an area that I am most uncomfortable with, and that would be the lakes. Idaho has over 2,000 lakes within its borders, and with that normally comes lake monsters. There are quite a few, but we won't go over them all here. The first would be found in Payette Lake near McCall, and is named Charlie or Slimy Slim. Legends about this lake date back to Native American lore, where they claim that the waters housed an evil spirit, although Charlie isn't known to be violent. The first recorded sighting occurred in 1920 when a group of railroad workers were busy cutting ties when they noticed what they thought to be a log floating in the water. As they watched this log, it began to swim away quickly and soon vanished under the water's surface. Then, in August of 1944, multiple groups of people numbering in the 30s reported seeing an odd dinosaur-like creature in the water. They all said that it had greenish-blue, shell-like skin, had humps like a camel, a pronounced jaw, and that it was between 30 and 35 feet in length. Then, in September of 1946, a group of 20 people saw the same creature. One of those, named Dr. G.A. Taylor, stated that the beast kept rising out of the water and diving back in again. Each time it would make little wakes in the water similar to that of a boat. With these sightings, the size remained fairly consistent with earlier reports, as they said it was between 30 and 40 feet. Through the years, there have been quite a few other sightings up until 2006. What is interesting is that some of those who have reported seeing the creature are police officers, the mayor, and even members of the city council. This creature is never described as being a typical plesiosaur type of being, but more of a serpent. The next creature is known as the Swan Lake Monster, and it was only seen once, and possibly for a good reason. On August 22, 1868, a group of men were near Old's Ferry when they saw something emerge from the water. At first, the only thing that appeared was a trunk like an elephant that shot out water. This was then followed by a snake-like head that had a single black horn on its forehead, and it had wing-like fins jutting from its neck. The teeth were sharp and said to be around 10 inches long, and it had a red, forked tongue. The creature hauled its 20-foot-long body onto the shore, and the description only got weirder. It was said to produce an odor that was quite pungent. The front half was a greenish-yellow color with red and black spots, but the body was fish-like but covered in large iridescent-colored scales. It had quite a few short legs that were said to be easy to miss. Now, out of fear or shock, the men shot the creature in the eye. It reared up and began to let out a hissing sound. The whole time it was spewing a noxious poison from its mouth that withered everything it touched. As it flopped about, the men took another shot and hit it in its abdomen. It convulsed for a while, but soon quit moving. They quickly went into town to get a wagon and a group of other men to help them carry the beast. However, when they returned, they found nothing but the vegetation that had been burnt by the poison and a trail leading back into the water. It is believed that the shots did prove fatal, but this only happened after it returned to the water. Being the creature hasn't been seen since, we can only assume it was the last of its kind. Next, we have the Bear Lake Monster, and it has a really weird history. Allegedly, the story was spread from Native American lore about water devils found in the lake. Then, in 1868, Joseph C. Rich wrote about many claimed sightings, and this is what really got the legend off the ground. Sadly, Mr. Rich eventually stated that his contribution was a lie, yet there were other various sightings after that fact. Descriptions are all over the board, with some saying it resembles a walrus without tusks, while others say it is more like a mosasaur. What is agreed upon is that it is said to be around 40 feet long and it has a taste for human flesh. With this, many claim that it is known to attack swimmers, but will also crawl out in the land in order to hunt for food. In 1907, 2 men claimed that the creature did just that while their group was camping near the lake. Luckily for them, the only thing the beast managed to grab was one of their horses. It was then seen in 1937 and again in 1946 by a Boy Scout leader. Then, in 2002, a businessman named Brian Hershey claimed to see 2 humps in the water while he was out in his boat. They disappeared from sight, but then he felt something hit the bottom of his craft with a force that almost lifted it out of the water. When he looked down, he saw a dark green serpent-like neck emerge. The head soon emerged as well, and he said it had many teeth in its mouth and beet red colored eyes. The creature apparently roared at him and sunk below the surface. Brian didn't take any more chances and decided to get quickly to shore. The last known sighting was in 2007, when a man was out in his boat at night fishing. While reeling in his line, he heard a loud roaring sound, and when he looked at his right, he saw the head of a similar creature that Brian had seen, staring back at him. Luckily for him, the beast ducked under the water and wasn't seen again. Wow, this video seemed to go by quick. As usual, I couldn't talk about every cryptid found here, so that is what our honorable mention section is for. Let's say it all together, Bigfoot is found in quite a few locations here. The next one has a bit of a discrepancy, since there are tales of weird black colored dogs here. Now what makes things confusing is that the famed Shunkawarakan is on display in Idaho, but was actually shot in Montana. So I'm only mentioning this for posterity. In our main part of the video, we talked about many creatures residing in the water, but there are two others. There isn't a lot of information about them, but apparently Lake Coeur d'Alene is said to have a type of mermaid and a horned creature that attacks boats. There are old reports of a creature known as a snow snake here. It is unlikely to be real, not only because snakes are cold-blooded, but also because these stories emerge from lumberjack tales. Regardless, they are said to be completely white in color and found buried in snow. The only thing that can be seen is their red or pink eyes. The bad thing is that they are said to be highly venomous and easily can kill a human being. While not a cryptid in the least, I found it funny that many people claim that Idaho doesn't actually exist. As with most theories of this type, the supporting information is very lacking, but they claim that it is simply an experiment from the government that makes people think that they live there. Basically, if you think you live there, it is because you're hallucinating. At the very least, the claims are that Idaho is simply on the map as a way to make a barrier between Utah and Canada. This last point makes sense. Hear me out. Only because I think it is a residual thought due to Idaho being included in so many other territories before it actually became a state. As for the hallucination thing, well, I won't touch that one. A couple lake monsters I didn't talk about would be the Lake Ponderer paddler. Now, I was going to mention it, but oddly enough, it appears that it isn't a cryptid at all, but rather Navy submarines testing acoustic development. Who knew? Another water-based one is a being that I talked about in another video, but it resides in a gray area between spirit and creature, and they are water babies from Massacre Rock. Maybe I'll make a video about them one day. The last one on our list would be the Nanumbi. These are found in Native American lore and are said to be a race of dwarfs that live in the Owyhee Mountains. Unlike the stories you commonly see, these 2 to 3 foot tall creatures were cannibals and had a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth. They frequently fought with the Shoshone and Paiute tribes until they were finally killed off once the tribes united. Rumor has it that not all of them are gone though. In ending this, I sincerely hope that you enjoyed it and that I made Idaho proud. I had a little extra pressure with this one since I know a friend of mine watching this is fairly familiar with the lore, so I hope I got it right. Remember to keep voting for which state you would like to see next in our series by writing the name in your comment. Even though I said Hawaii is now in first place, there are at least 6 other states that are each a couple votes away from taking the first slot. Keep in mind that our Cryptid by State series is currently being shown on Intrigue TV and Paranormal TV under the name of The Ben Miller Show. Both of these can be added to your Roku, Apple TV, Google, and Fire Stick streaming devices. Not only this, but there are multiple stations that you can watch this on. For example, I know WCRN in Boston regularly has their schedule up. While I greatly appreciate your viewership here, I would also like to have strong numbers on the TV side. That way, they will continue to want more content from me, and it broadens our reach. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you share my videos with someone you know who may enjoy this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.